And of course, this first play along is going to be one bar of E minor, one bar D major, one bar C major, one bar D major, and then back to E. One thing I want to point out, we haven't talked much about the right hand or the picking hand. Usually hold the pick at a 45-degree angle from the thumb. And this first exercise is going to be a real basic strumming motion. Just kind of up and down like that. You can start off a little slower if you're having trouble changing between the chords. Okay, let's get started with the first play along. We're ready to learn some more chords. This is G major. It's going to utilize all 6 strings of the guitar. Start by fingering the E string on the 3rd fret with your 2nd finger, and the A string in the 2nd fret with your 1st finger. The D, G, and B string are going to be open, and then your 3rd finger on the 3rd fret of the E string. Remember to get a good arch with your fingers so you're not dampening some of the open strings. That's G major. Very common chord. There's another version of the G major chord that's a little more commonly used, which involves using the 3rd finger on the B string in the 3rd fret, and then your 4th finger where your 3rd finger was, in the 3rd fret on the E string. A little bit more full sounding chord. So there's this, and then this G major. I prefer the 2nd one. Right? Next chord we're going to learn is a different version of C. We played C major like this earlier before. But coming from this G to make C 2nd, which it's called because it contains the 2nd scale degree in the chord, is move these 2 fingers down a group of strings. So you're going to be fingering the A string with your 2nd finger in the 3rd fret, and then on the D string with your 1st finger in the 2nd fret. So that's C, it's called C 2nd. You can call it C major as well. Sounds like that. So it's a really easy transition to go from that version of the G chord to C 2nd. It's real pretty sound. And the 3rd chord we're going to learn for this section is A minor. And that's made by striking the A string open, your 2nd finger on the D string in the 2nd fret, your 3rd finger in the 2nd fret on the G string, and on the B string, your 1st finger on the 1st fret. And the A and the E are open. So those 3 chords together. Then to A minor. So for the play along, we're going to make a chord progression out of those 3 chords and 1 chord from our prior section, which is D major. And there'll be 1 bar of each chord. I'll play it real slow and it sounds like this. So get used to changing between those chords, taking your time. This will obviously be the easiest change you have to make, then from the A to the D. Whenever there's a problem in any particular chord progression that you're working on, be sure and try to isolate the two chords maybe that are giving you the most problem in changing. Just practice going back and forth between them. So we're ready for play along 2. Okay, you may have noticed at one point during the D chord that I was adding certain notes and making the chord sound different. It's called ornamenting the chord, and it's real common, especially on that D major chord. What I was doing was, to the actual D major chord, adding my 4th finger to the 3rd fret of the E string to create that sound, then resolving back to the D major chord, and then lifting the 2nd finger off to the open E string. Real common sound you hear quite a bit, especially on the D major chord on the guitar. Other things I wanted to point out was that between the D major and then going back to the G, you'll notice that you can leave the 3rd finger where it is. It's always good to, between any two chords, to see if there's any fingers that are common in both chords and try to keep them constant between the two. The less movement, the better, instead of going and then lifting everything off. Also, another thing, something that helps create a good time feel, as you probably notice while I'm playing, I've got my leg tapping or my foot tapping. Some part of your body moving in time will really help solidify your time feel and feeling the beat. Even if it's just your head nodding. So when you're practicing, work on doing that. Okay, now we're ready to switch from a clean sound to a distortion sound. So if you have distortion on the amplifier, click that in, or if you don't, hopefully you have some kind of distortion pedal device that you can kick on now to get the distortion sound. Something like this. Okay, and what we're going to work on first is playing what's called an open power chord. Called open because it contains an open string somewhere in the chord. Now, the first chord we're going to learn today is an open E chord. E5 it's sometimes called, and it contains the open E string. Then your first finger is going to bar across 2 strings, and the 2nd fret across the A and the D string. You're just only going to play those 3 strings. It'll sound just like that. But another technique is going to come into play here, and it's going to be something that will be really useful when you're playing with distortion, because there's going to be a lot of extraneous noise because you're dealing with a lot of gain. So there's going to be muting going on in both your left and your right hand. If you'll notice in my right hand, I'm resting the palm, this part of the palm of my hand across the strings as soon as I strike them, even while I'm hitting them, to get a more controlled, even sound. And sometimes your left hand can mute as well with the other fingers coming across after you've let the first part of the chord speak out. But in this exercise, we're going to primarily be muting with your left, your right picking hand. Okay. The A power chord is going to look just like that. You're just going to be moving it down a string. So you can have an open A chord, open A note, and then your first finger is going to bar across the D and the G string in the 2nd fret. Sound like that. I'm playing these with all downstrokes and muting. And next is